All right, today we're tackling a huge question, one of the biggest and frankly, most unnerving questions in all of finance. It's a question that revolves around a number so big it's hard to even wrap your head around, and it could literally reshape the world as we know it.
And this is it. It might sound a little out there, almost crazy, but what if the very bedrock of the world's financial system just started to crack? What happens when the biggest borrower on the planet suddenly finds out its credit card is maxed out?
Okay, to really get a grip on this, you have to start with the number $33 trillion. It's almost impossible to really comprehend. I mean, that's more than the entire economies of Europe, Africa, and South America all put together. And this debt is starting to fundamentally change the global economic order.
Now, you know what the crazy thing is? For the better part of a century, this massive pile of IOUs wasn't seen as a problem at all. In fact, it was seen as the exact opposite. It was considered the single safest investment on planet Earth. We're talking about U.S. Treasury bonds. Basically, think of them as the world's savings account. For decades, anytime a country, friend or foe, needed a super safe place to park its cash, it bought American debt. This whole system was the backbone of global finance. In the trust tier, it was absolute. I mean, it was backed by the most powerful economy in history, and you were guaranteed to get your money back. If you were a government managing your country's taxpayer money, there was simply nothing safer. The entire global financial system was built on one single powerful assumption. The US dollar was infallible. But, well, that era of rock-solid stability, it's kind of given way to something a lot more volatile. America's relationship with debt has changed in a big way, and the snowball was just about to start rolling downhill. Just look at this timeline. You can see exactly when things started to go off the rails. The 2008 financial crisis opened the floodgates with huge bailouts, but then the 2020 pandemic response just blew that out of the water, pumping trillions more into the system. And the result? For the first time since World War II, America's debt is now bigger than its entire yearly economic output. Now, for a long time, this all seemed manageable because we were living in the era of free money. Interest rates were hovering near zero, so the cost of borrowing all these trillions was next to nothing. The U.S. could just keep piling on debt without immediate consequences. But it was a huge gamble on things staying stable forever. And this is what happens when that bet goes wrong. For the first time in history, the amount the U.S. government pays just in interest on its debt is now larger than its entire military budget, which, by the way, is the biggest in the world. This is completely unprecedented. Think about that. Nearly 1 out of every $5 you pay in taxes now goes to just paying interest on old debt. Okay, so this is where it all starts to get really shaky. That core assumption, that unwavering trust, is beginning to crumble. The world is taking notice, and big investors are starting to vote with their feet. And look at who's selling. It's not just the usual suspects. Yeah, China, a major rival, has dumped over $340 billion worth of U.S. bonds. Japan, the second biggest holder, sold off around $200 billion. But what's really telling is that even America's closest allies, we're talking the UK, Canada, they're selling too. So the message here is crystal clear. That foundational trust, the bedrock that held up the global financial system for almost 100 years, has been seriously shaken. The world is starting to wonder if the U.S. can actually afford to pay its bills. So why should you care about any of this? Because this isn't just some abstract numbers game for Wall Street. A crisis of confidence like this doesn't stay in the financial markets. It hits you right in the wallet. Here's how it plays out, like a row of dominoes tipping over. First, foreign countries sell off massive amounts of U.S. bonds. To do that, they have to sell U.S. dollars. That floods the market with dollars, which makes the dollar's value plummet. And when the dollar is weak, everything America imports suddenly gets way more expensive. The final domino? Runaway inflation. And to be clear, we're not talking about some fuzzy economic theory. This means the gas for your car, the groceries on your shelf, the phone in your hand, so much of which is imported, it all starts costing more. What begins as a sell-off in the bond market ends with you paying higher prices at the store. There's an old saying that just nails this whole situation. When the debt is 33 times trillion dollars, it's not just America's problem anymore. It's the world's problem. A major stumble by the US could take the entire global economy down with it. And all of this leads to the really tough part. The US is now backed into a corner with no easy way out. It is well and truly caught between a rock and a hard place. So, when you boil it all down, there are really only two ways out of this mess, and neither of them are good. Option 1, massive, brutal spending cuts. We're talking huge slashes to incredibly popular programs, Social Security, healthcare, even the military. Politically, it's radioactive. Option 2, just fire up the printing presses and create more money to cover the bills. But that's basically seen as economic suicide. It would destroy what's left of the dollar's credibility and could trigger hyperinflation. And to be really clear here, tinkering around the edges isn't going to cut it. You hear about efforts to cut wasteful spending, and maybe that saves $40 billion. Sounds like a lot, right? Well, that only covers about 10 days' worth of interest payments. To fix this, you need massive, painful, politically toxic decisions.
So, where does all this leave us? What's the big picture here? Well, we might be looking at more than just a financial crisis. This could be a fundamental shift in who holds power in the world.
You see, other countries aren't just sitting around waiting to see what happens. They're already making other plans, hedging their bets. China is working hard to make its currency, the yuan, a global player. Other nations are shifting to gold or the euro, or even looking at digital currencies. But the goal is always the same: become less reliant on the US dollar.
And that leaves us right back where we started, with that massive $33 trillion question. Are we watching the beginning of the end for the dollar's long reign as the world's financial safe haven? Because without some drastic action, the fallout could reshape our world in ways we haven't seen in a century. And that is definitely something to think about.